There we go. You should be able to hear the audio now. All right. Audio, audio, audio. Is it good now? It should be good. All right. So we'll wait a minute because it sometimes takes it a while for it to flip over. Yeah, it should be good now. Okay, good. Yay. Awesome. Hey, Marcella, Lisa, Melanie, Erica. So Piso, I'm so glad you're here, sweetheart. Martha, Erica, Melanie, Sakina, Nikki, Renee, Ashley, Rome, and okay, you guys should be able to hear me now. Thank you, sweetheart. Yes. Okay, good. Mwah. Big hugs to all of you. So today is day one, the new day one of Warrior Goddess Wild. So doing a 7-day challenge. I'll be doing Facebook Lives and YouTube Lives and Instagram Lives. Hi. Every day for the next 7 days. And you can also join along on the journey at www.wildwitchywise.com. So let me stick that down here. And part of the 7-day challenge is that we send out a little video. Once you register, we send out a little video. There's a task to do for every day. And then I'm following up with Facebook Lives. And you don't have to have watched the video. The video is about 10 minutes-ish to be here on the live. You can always join and watch later. And if you join, I know it's a fun URL. This is the first of 3 challenges. So this is the Warrior Goddess Wild, which is based on a new book that I have coming up, which is about the maiden, mother, and crone energy. So the Warrior Goddess Wild is about the maiden energy. So we're going to talk about how do we bring in more pleasure, play, creativity, joy, even during difficult times. And as I wrote in the copy for the Warrior Goddess Wild Challenge, this is not going to be airy-fairy or like, let's just think good thoughts. People, the world is in a rough spot. Hey, Ivana, I'm personally in a big challenging time right now. So many of you know that Warrior Heart Ranch, the land that I've been stewarding for the last 3 years, was part of the largest New Mexico wildfire ever. The fire's still burning. It's like 50% contained, and we lost probably 98% of the forest on our property. So it's really heartbreaking. And I'm so grateful to be here because even in the heartbreak, even in the challenges, we still get to learn how to bring in joy and pleasure. We don't have to wait till everything's cleaned up or everything's fixed or the world is in a better place. We actually need to bring in more pleasure and play so that we can get through the hard times. That's just the truth. Hey, Lori. Hi, love. Mwah. Does it say, okay, so let's try this again. Try this link. I'm going to put the full link. Just give me 1 second. Wild Witchy Wise. Let me make sure that I have it right. .com. I'm going to copy that. I think because it's a boop. So try that one. Boop. There's a new one. See if that one works. So if you want to join the challenge, I just shared another link. Hopefully that one will work. Let me know if it does or doesn't. And yay. Yeah. So today, day one for Warrior Goddess Wild. And again, if you are part of the challenge, yay. I hope that you enjoyed the video today and the little task that we have. Still doesn't work. What is going on? Okay. I might have to write my team and find out. Damn it. Okay. Let me do this really quick. You guys can be with me when I do this. La, la, la. Hey, loves, I'm live on Facebook, and people are telling me that the wildwitchywise.com is not working, and I just tried, and indeed, it's not working for some reason. So can you check out it or send me the correct link? Because I think it's https wildwitchywise.com, but that ain't working. Thanks, sweets. And if one of you can come on to Facebook and share the link, that'd be great. Or just text me here, that's fine too. All right, so where were we? All right, boom. Okay, so I will find the link. We will get it to you so we can figure it all out. Thanks for everybody going and checking. So day one of this challenge, and as I was saying before, this is one of 3 different challenges. So this is the maiden energy, play, curiosity, experimentation. We're going to talk about why it's so important to bring those things in. Thank you, Lisa. There's the long URL. That's perfect. And the second part of that trinity is the mother energy. And it's not just about mothering children, it's about learning to mother ourselves, learning to mother. I think about that as a nourishing energy, how to help sustain and grow things. So the mother energy, the next one will be warrior goddess witchy, because it's also that magical place of creating and growing things. And then the last challenge, which will probably be December, is warrior goddess wise. And that will be about the crone energy. So for now, we're moving into summer. I always love to connect things to the seasons that we're in. So the time in the northern hemisphere we're moving towards summer. For those of you in the southern hemisphere, you're moving towards winter. Good to bring play into winter as well. And that place of more light, more sunshine, the blossoms are coming, the fruit is coming. It's a really wonderful time. Okay, good. Thanks, Marianne. It's a really wonderful time to just step into exploring what is pleasure for me. What does it mean for me to play? Okay. And it's what we need to do as we step into this journey of exploration is let go of our old ideas of what pleasure and play should look like, or when we're allowed to have it. Okay. And these lives that I'm doing every day as part of the challenge, we'll be asking, we'll be answering questions. I'll be sharing what's going on with me on my journey. So it's just a real casual check-in, deepen with whatever the theme is of the day. And so if you want to join the challenge, if you just type in wildwitchywise.com, it should work. And and Lisa shared the long URL. So that one definitely works. That's the official URL. And, day one of the Warrior Goddess Wild Challenge is the question, really simple question, but really profound question, which is, what is pleasure? What is pleasure for you? Not what you think pleasure should be, but really what is pleasure for you? So in today's video, I explored this idea of what is pleasure and how we get to bring ourselves back into the present in our relationship with pleasure now. And that's what we'll be doing throughout the next 7 days, is going deeper in our exploration around our relationship, both the places that we believe that we shouldn't have pleasure, or it's not okay, or the places where we are learning how to deepen our relationship with pleasure. So there's a comment, Facebook user sometimes, and here's the thing, love, with these is that I'm using a hosting service, and so I don't always see all the chat, all the things that are coming through. Comments, that's what they're called. I don't always see all the comments. So if I don't say your name, or if I don't read your thing, then it just means I can't see you. I'm not ignoring you, I promise. So the comment was, I find it so challenging to be in play and pleasure during deep heartbreak. Of course, it helps though to have my list. Exactly. So there's a task today as part of Warrior Goddess Wild to help us start to learn how to turn towards pleasure. And here's the thing, is that there's a lot of agreements that we carry often that says when you finish your to-do list, or when you are in a really good space, or when the world has calmed down, or when you have been a good person, then you can have pleasure. And we tend to put it off, or we had this other thing, which is also to me really nutty when you think about it, which is I'm going to work really, really, really hard, and then I'm going to take a week of vacation, and then I can play on my vacation. Except for any of us that have been on vacations, you know, you go on vacation, it takes you a day or two to unplug and kind of get in. And then you've got maybe 3 days of rest. And then you start thinking about going back into your day. And usually by the time you go back into your life, you haven't integrated anything from your vacation. You've just had a break. So this idea of warrior goddess wild is we want to bring our wild self into all of our life, all the parts of our life. The heartbreak, the challenge, the sweetness, and that as we practice in little bitty steps, pleasure and play, and start to learn what it is for us. So for those of you like Erica just wrote, I don't know what pleasure and play is. And I'm sure some of you are feeling like I don't know what that feels like. You're in the right place, because that's what we're going to be exploring. And for those of you that are in big heartbreak right now, that are really struggling with something, this is a great place to be held and taking little baby steps to start to bring in some more spaciousness. Yeah. And it's to start asking ourselves this question: what's pleasure to me? Not what have I learned about pleasure? Because a lot of what we learned about pleasure, I think, is kind of nonsense a lot of times. It's not actually helpful. So we're learning to come into relationship with this body, this time, this age, and ask that question: what is pleasure? And then get curious about it. And I'll be giving a lot of tips over the Warrior Goddess Wild journey, our 7-day journey together, around how to find out what your pleasure is and how to play. So yeah, Cherie, pleasure for me is playing freely like a child. Mm-hmm. And Delphine writes, rediscovering pleasure as I renew myself each and every day. Beautiful. Good. Hey, River. So I'm casting on both YouTube, Instagram, a lot of the different Facebook pages as we explore our day 1 of Warrior Goddess Wild. And for those of you that are on my newsletter list, if you read my newsletter today, you know that it's been a time for me and for many of us. So I recently, I guess it's been a couple weeks ago, there's been a wildfire raging in New Mexico, where I live, for, gosh, almost 2 months now. So I started April 6th. And I've been watching it progressively move closer and closer to the land that I steward. So we have 180 acres called Warrior Heart Ranch. That's part of the community. That's our home base. And a couple weeks ago, the fire went through the ranch, and we lost really 98+% of the forest. It's really, really heartbreaking. The firefighters did save the building, which is an incredible gift. And we had our first retreat up there this weekend. And, you know, why I'm sharing this with you is because I want you to know that I take this with a lot of passion, because this isn't a theoretical thing of how do we bring pleasure and play. I am actively figuring that out right now, because there's a lot of heartbreak and a lot of grief in my community, because so many people have lost their homes, have lost their livelihood, have lost their land. I have personal heartbreak because of the amount of trees that we lost and what's going to happen next, which is the rains come. So I have a big list of things that need to happen to help protect the land. And it's also beautiful in its own way. And so we had a group of people up there this weekend. It was our first retreat up there at post fire. And I was like, I know I need to bring people up here, but it also feels really weird to know that there's a fire still burning, you know, not close to us, but a couple ridges away. And that we have this little bubble, but that beyond that bubble is just incredible destruction. And we all agreed at the end what an incredible gift it was to be with the heartbreak, like to walk the forest in silence, to be with the trees, to discover. I mean, there were so many things, and also the joy that was there of some of the trees that did survive, and the views that we now have. And we also really consciously played a lot. Okay. We had dance parties. We had a bubble machine. Tara was fantastic. Tara brought hula hoops, a bubble machine. And there was big ritual and ceremony that happened. There's a lot of laughter. There's a lot of tears. And that all of that can coexist. It can all coexist. That we don't have to be grief and then over here, far, far, far away, is giving ourselves permission to have pleasure. That we start to get bigger, and it takes time. So the first week after the fire, I was devastated. It was really hard to just contemplate and be with the forest. It was really, really heartbreaking. And I knew it would shift. And if I gave myself the space to grieve, and I also gave myself the space to listen and to have gratitude for what we do have and what we did have and what we've created. And slowly, as I've brought joy in and we've played and we've felt, life continues, that there's this, I feel more at peace now. I feel more of an opening now. So it's not negating the grief. And this is something that, when we talk about what is pleasure, pleasure is not, again, this thing that's separate from everything else. I want us to learn how to embody it in the moment with whatever is happening. And that takes practice. So I couldn't have done what I've been doing with the land if I hadn't been on a deep path of learning how to grieve, of learning how to open my heart, of learning how to bring joy in. Because I was not a joyful person in some ways. I mean, in my young life, I was very joyful, but I had a period when I was in college that I got really serious. I was on a spiritual path. It was serious. I had to heal myself. I really locked my energy down for years because I thought I had to first fix myself before I could play, have pleasure, have joy. And I've learned that there's always going to be things. We were talking about launching this challenge, launching Warrior Goddess Wild, and the shootings happened, and we're navigating the fire, and there's so much heartbreak. And I said to my team, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do this right now. And we all felt into it, and we really realized, actually, we need to do it more than ever. We need to bring in our gratitude and learn how to open ourselves to the beauty that's around us so that we can keep going, so that we can rebuild, so that we can renew. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Laura. Yeah. And then Leo, the stones up at the land are amazing. And that's one of the things that we're seeing, is that it's getting stripped down to the core, which is the rocks and the earth and the mountains. So thanks, Laura, for your hugs. Yeah, thank you. I'm just reading some of your comments. It reminds me when you brought us to Bastrop to walk the Land Labyrinth barefoot after the fire. Yeah. I do think we need this more than ever. Exactly. Yeah, there was a huge fire in Texas when we lived there, in a town called Bastrop, and it was one of those fires that they said the scar is seen from space. Like, it was a huge fire. I mean, how many thousands of acres? But one of the things that it did is it burned these stand of pine trees that were pretty rare, especially in Texas. And there was a retreat center that we used to visit that also got burned. And I decided, I'm like, you know what? How do we honor the fire? How do we honor this loss of this community, of what they had created? And we all went and just sat in the ashes and walked the labyrinth with bare feet, and loved that land. And there's beauty in that. There's a good, what we're talking about really is relationships, right? So I have a relationship with the land. Many of you have a relationship with the land. We have our relationships with our kids and our dogs and our computer, all the things, our phones. We have big relationships with our phones. And in those relationships, we want to get more skillful at bringing in more joy, because that's what that's part of getting to be human, is that we get to be in joy. We get to love, we get to open our hearts, which also means that we get to have our hearts broken, that we get to have loss, that we grieve. All of it's together. And my experience has been is the more grief that we're able to open through, the more love there is on the other side, because grief is an expression of love. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, question then, what is pleasure to you? So, as we explore, and if you're just joining us, this is part of a 7-day challenge called Warrior Goddess Wild. You're welcome to join us. The URL, just type in, don't do the front part, just type in wildwitchywise.com and it should pop up. And today's question is, what is pleasure? We're going to be exploring over the next 7 days how to integrate play, pleasure, presence into our everyday lives. Lots of different exercises. It's a really beautiful journey, and I'm excited to be on it with you. Oh, thanks, River. Love you too, sweetheart. Erica, your vulnerabilities, you speak your truth, is so inspirational, motivating, empowering. Your sincere honesty and realness always raises my vibration no matter what's going on. Yay. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. Yeah. So in the exercise today, we started exploring what is pleasure? What is it? What is it? What is it? And I'll share with me, like, I have a new appreciation for the color green. When you walk acres and acres and acres of blackened forest and you see a little hint of green up ahead, like, that was a big part of my joy this weekend. Being up on the land with people was one, all of us being with the heartbreak and also playing. And also, like, my appreciation for green right now. Oh my gosh. And the life force. I mean, literally there's like everything's taken down to the ground and then there's a little sprout coming out. So I also just have the pleasure of seeing life coming back so powerfully. So that was great. And pleasure for me is also meeting new people. So I had an incredible blessing yesterday. I have a neighbor who has lived there for 50 years. Her mama owned the whole area and then sold it off. Yeah, nature is teaching us resilience. So true, Delphine. So yesterday, she and I went up and drove the property, and she's been hiking up on the land for 50 years. And she said, and she came to, like, this is my favorite spot on this property. And we just sat in silence, and I could feel her going through the years of how many times she's come up to that ridge over her lifetime. And that was just such a joy to witness through her. So there's another great way to engage in pleasure, is to be around other people that know how to be in pleasure and joy and how to play. Because there's a way we have to relearn so often how to play. What does that mean? Yeah. I love it. Visionary health entrepreneur. Hello. Pleasure is allowing what is to be without attachments. Yeah, that is definitely pleasurable. So what else? What are some of the things that bring you pleasure? Yeah, Martha, that which sparks joy on any level, physical, emotional, spiritual, that which invokes and puts me in touch with childlike awe and wonder. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So what else? What brings you pleasure? And then let's talk about integrating that. I have another thing that's bringing me great pleasure. So when the wildfires came, I got evacuated from my house, and I'm just now moving in. I think I've been gone, I don't even know. I can't even calculate, but I'm moving in. And this morning I woke up early and started rearranging furniture and cleaning. And, like, it's the thing when your life gets shaken up, is that it allows you to step back and reevaluate. So for me, the pleasure of reevaluating, does this space feel good to me? What would I change? And then just changing things. Renee, I lived through Mount St. Helens eruption growing up in Rainier, Washington, so I understand the land coming back. I worked for geology as their tech for 15 years. Wow. And it's interesting how quickly the earth starts to heal herself after a catastrophic event. Thanks for sharing that, Renee. Yeah, I can't even imagine. Yeah, and music and dance are my pleasures. Being spiritual is my pleasure. Love it. Sakina. Martha, music, hands in dirt, listening to the ocean, children's laughter, hands in clay, creating. Beautiful. Annette, a lot of things that bring me pleasure also bring me pain. It's hard to make sense of it. Yeah, so we can talk about that. It's a great wondering. Annette, for sure. Martha, being held. Yes. Erica, I think my block is I associated pleasure with sex or intimacy, which I have a horrible relationship with. Thanks for bringing that up, Erica. Thank you. Because when we started doing this challenge, it didn't even occur to me that people would equate pleasure with sexuality or intimacy, because that's not where I was thinking at all. But that's become really associated, that pleasure means intimacy or sexuality. And that can be, but that's like this. And I'm talking about pleasure that's not associated with sexuality or intimacy. Okay, so that's part of it. There's a lot more. And so, yeah, I think it's a great to see that there's a block there, and that you don't have to like put that aside. You know, for any of you that have had trauma around sexuality, that have challenges around intimacy, like that's been there's been wounding, or that there's grief or hurt around sexuality, sensuality, and intimacy. My suggestion for you is just put that aside for now with love as you do this challenge, because that's not what this challenge is about. Okay, and this is for everybody, right? But just like set it aside and tell your body, like, we're not doing that, sweetheart. It's okay. We're doing something else. And what we're going to be exploring is, how do you use your senses to bring more pleasure in? Just touch, like this color blue, like, look at this color blue. Is that awesome? Okay. That's the kind of pleasure we're talking about. And also, you know, we did this beautiful ritual up on the land under where the yurt's going to be built. So the foundation of the yurt is still in progress. And we did a whole beautiful ceremony and put tiles down and did prayers and sang and did our rattles. And then Tara set up the bubble machine, and we had bubbles going all over the place. And so that was, again, play. So play and pleasure. What does play look like? And it doesn't have to look like anything, but what opens your heart? What feels enlivening would be another way to put it. Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up, Erica. Oh, good. There's all these great. Okay. Sky, I can totally relate to your love for green growth inside the fire line. When volunteering in New Orleans after Katrina, I found a guitar case crushed under 6 feet of debris. Opened it up and found a mama rat and her wee babies. Oh my gosh, I love it. Many could not understand why I celebrated this find, and my response that it was amazing to find a sign of life amongst so much destruction. Exactly. Miracle. We found, this was another beauty, is the first night we were there, Serena called up to me, and I'm sleeping in my burnt out tent. It was pretty hilarious. I was covered by ash at the end of the time. But Serena's like, do you hear a cat? And I was like, I don't, but it could be. So the next day we were listening, and there's this obvious meowing. And I'm like, if that's a bird, because it was hard to tell. I'm like, if that's a bird, it's a really good bird. But we followed it, and we went where we thought it was, and then it changed, and then we walked back, and then we kept looking for it, and it kept meowing, and then it would go quiet. And I just said to Serena, was with me, I said, let's just sit. So she and I sat down and got really quiet and just waited. And the cat didn't make a sound, but Serena was like, I think it's in the arroyo. I think it's down there. And so I started just watching and just scanning, and she was feeling, and I was like, there it is. There's this little poof, like literally this big of a kitten in the arroyo. And we went down, and it ran up the hill. It was, feral and scared. So it ran up the hill, but then it came up and like snuck in between the plywood right by the building. So it got really close to us and just hung out. And so all weekend we got to feel this little baby kitten, knowing that it had survived and that it was probably going home with one of us, which was such a joy. It survived this huge fire. Yeah. So just to find any type of life. And that little kitty is now, oh my gosh, the photos are so beautiful, is now in a new home and doing really, really well. So yeah, Lori, pleasure of music and art. Yes, more of that. Ocean breeze and laughter, dancing, laughing at myself. Always good. That is one of the best pleasures, I think, is learning how to laugh at yourself, because you're going to be endlessly humorous. Because we as humans are funny. Remind me to tell you about the dog story and my truck. Yeah, painting, dancing, sex, reading children's literature, playing with my twin niece and nephew and seeing the world through their eyes. Kids, of course, are the best. One sec. At teaching us about play, right? Yeah, laughter. Yeah, cooking, eating, puppy dogs, animals in general. Oops, sorry about that. Hi. Yeah, being pleasurable brings your inner insights. I totally agree. When you are playing, or when you are letting yourself enjoy in whatever way, your whole nervous system relaxes, your intuition opens, your creativity opens, your connection to the divine opens. That's why it's so important. That's why it's not like, I'll get to this after. It's like, we want to bring it in now because it opens everything. Yeah, so true, Sakina. Baby birds in my front door wreath, relocated for safety, the sweet smell of my garden flowers, and the morning symphony of songbirds. Yes, I love it. Beautiful. Living in sacred space that is spiritual sanctuary and is my home, embracing the silence for meditation and connecting to the divine. Hey, Doe. Yeah, exactly. See you soon, Marcella. Petting my beautiful dog, Ginger. Yes. Hugging. Yeah. So all these things. So today, as our exploration is just to hold this question in your being, what is pleasurable for me? And if your mind comes in and says, I don't even know what my pleasure is, I don't know how to play, and then starts listing all the reasons why you don't know or you haven't, just come back to, hi, sweetheart. Now, this is always one of my favorite tools. One hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, take a breath. Hi, sweetheart, come back. Come right here. And then, again, what is pleasure for me? What is pleasurable for me? And that might be a color, a taste, a feeling sense, your favorite fuzzy sweater. Yeah. Renee, I wrote down things I loved in childhood and started learning the keyboard again and picked up drums. I was born a dancer. Yeah. And laughter is such great medicine. Yeah. And to also, pay attention that we don't have to grind down. Chocolate, for sure. We don't have to grind down. So again, often we learn or we believe that when bad things, difficult things, challenging things, hard things happen, that we should collapse to either protect ourselves or to try and push through. And so Sunday morning, yeah, it was Sunday morning. Sunday morning, my friend Marilyn and I threw our two dogs in the back of my truck and we drove down to my neighbor's house to feed the pigs, which I love. I mean, the pigs are, oh my God, they're so great. Sakina, grind down means to close. So to harden ourselves. So we feed the pigs and then we're about to get back in my truck to go back up the hill and I'm teaching. So I'm teaching and then I have a wedding later in the day and the car's locked. And I'm like, well, that's weird. And I go to the back and it's locked too. And I realize with great horror that my keys are inside the truck and one of the dogs has stepped on the lock button. So we now have two dogs locked into my truck with all the windows up. and I need to be at class. Mhm. And I took a breath and I was like, well, this is going to be interesting. All the backups of the backups, like the hidden key that I have on my truck, we couldn't find it. I called Franklin, who has a backup set. He couldn't find the backup set. Who knows where the backup set, where it's been evacuated to. Um, yeah. And throughout the time, I walked back to the house and walked down again. I just kept coming back to, we're going to figure this out. How great that I get to go for a little walk to go get my phone so I can call. Right? It was, there's no, and it didn't dim my pleasure of where I was or the company that I was with. It was a little stressful for sure. But my neighbors pulled up. We all laughed about how many times we've locked our keys in our car, and he handed me a hammer and we broke the window. Yeah. Yeah. Sky, struggling with finding that joy and pleasure center. It doesn't feel natural to experience pleasures these days amidst all the struggle, though I'm a joyful person at heart. Really working with this right now. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for Hi Sweetheart Come Back exercise. Such a good reminder. Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a I'll just use the word tear, like with what's happening in the world. And it's sometimes hard to give ourselves permission to have pleasure when we're like, the world's on fire. Okay. And here's the thing, loves, the world is always on fire in some form. Okay. There's always wars happening. There's always people locking their keys in their cars. There's always, I mean, yes, it's extreme. It's extreme, for example, that we've had the shooting. Okay. Hey, sweetheart. That's extreme. Period. And we can grieve that and we can feel the helplessness and the fury and the horror. And it doesn't negate that at the same time, babies are being born, people are being reunited, things are coming back to life. So all of it is happening simultaneously. And sometimes the media can be challenging because the media hooks our attention with fear and with like the worst case news, and it does it over and over again. And so, I remember 9/11, Erica's just writing 9/11. I remember 9/11, how often they replayed over and over and over and over again the scenes of the planes crashing. And I realized I kept watching, and to be able to go, okay, that happened, whatever the hard thing that happened, how do I metabolize it? Instead of like poking myself with it over and over again by watching. So to pay attention to how we saturate ourselves and make space to integrate and digest and find that space of opening into all of it, which is not easy at all. Yeah. So here's my suggestion. So Doe just wrote, my heart is breaking daily as I watch the news unfold. Don't watch the news every day, sweetheart. I go into the news once a week. Okay. Yeah, exactly. And that's it. Trying to find a balance of how much news I listen to and what newscast. Yes. So you want to be informed, and you also get to balance how you can metabolize the information so that you can stay steady. Yeah. And I can guarantee, like, I haven't had a television for decades. I used to not pay attention to my phone hardly at all. But I have friends, if something big is happening in the world, they'll tell me. Like, if there's something I need to know, I find out about it. And this isn't about being ignorant or saying I don't want to know what's going on in the world. I do want to know. And we all need to also live our lives in our local communities. Like the internet, remember the internet is recent. So for some of us, it's our entire lives, but for some of us, like I remember when the internet first came online, there wasn't internet before then. And so this idea that we always have to keep up with all the information that's coming, we can't. Okay, so that's a belief. Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, my doctor told me to stop watching the news. I got bad postpartum, thinking I was a hypocrite since I was full of joy while the world was grieving. The world needs joy as well as grieving, and we can do both. And we can do both. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I like to research information once I learn about it. Can't stand scripted media. Yeah. And so this is a dance. How do you find pleasure in relationship with the news as well? So I go for stories that are, I always look and have media sources as well that are uplifting so that there's a balance. Yeah. So that's a good thing to do, is to start looking at how to bring in a more well-rounded relationship to the news. Yeah. Yes, both and, exactly. It's not either or. Yeah. I always remember your milk story. Facebook user, hello, I'm not sure who it is. A few years ago, I broke a glass in the kitchen and yelled at myself. A few days ago, I dropped a mug of coffee and I was gentle with myself. I took a deep breath and asked myself, how do you want to clean this up? When I slip up, I beat myself up. My daughter tells me, be kind to yourself. Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. There's a great story that I share. And I think this is also like a rewiring to pleasure. So let's share this as the last piece. Yeah. That there was a cutting edge scientist who was interviewed. And one of the questions the interviewer asked him was, how did you get such a creative mind? Like, how is it that you think so outside the box and that you have such an openness in your relationship with science and the world? And he said, I can relate that back to a story when I was 3 years old. So his share was that when he was 3 years old, he decided he wanted a glass of milk, and he opened the fridge and got the milk jug out. And as he was moving the milk jug, he dropped the milk, the glass jug, and water went all over the place. Milk went all over the place. And his mom came in. And this is a critical point in the story, because for most of us, and this is why we equate, like why we create this dichotomy of like, it's not okay to have pleasure if there's heartbreak, something's broken, you've done something wrong. So mom walks in and says, oh, looks like a failed experiment. Let's clean it up and try again. I'll help you. Do you want to use the sponge or the mop? So what happened right there is mistakes happen and you clean it up, and you can actually have joy while cleaning it up. You don't have to beat yourself up, punish yourself, make yourself wrong. So he and his mom cleaned up the milk, and then she took the milk jug and filled it with water and stuck it back in the fridge and said, try again. Try again. So you can see, like right in there, there's this connection of mistakes is an opportunity to try something new, to learn, to play even. And that's the rewire. We're rewiring this whole challenge. I'd say Warrior Goddess Wild, that this 7-day challenge to realign your pleasure, play, or reignite your pleasure, play, and presence is really about getting us out of punishment reward model. Good, bad, right, wrong. And opening into something else. Okay. Yeah. The milk story, one of my favorites. Okay. And that's how we get to mother ourselves, is knowing. That's what the maiden does. Like the maiden, if we talk about Warrior Goddess Wild and the maiden energy, the maiden explores and makes mistakes and tries new things and is adventurous and is curious. And that's coming out of joy and play. Okay. So, and yes, we're gonna have to clean things up. So true. Yeah. Renee, I diligently cleaned up my social media too. I am about to clean the hell out of my email inbox. Yeah. Sakina, being pleasing is not about being perfect. Being perfect does not help you feel delighted. So true, Sakina. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. I'm grateful for all of those who help those with trauma. Yes. I understand personally the importance of that too. Also, our culture is not patient with the grieving process. It's important that we all support each other in whatever way that happens for us. Beautiful. Ebb and flow, cry and play, plunge into despair and come out again, and more. Just some thoughts. I so agree. Yeah. You know, I've had, thanks, Rachel. Okay, let's see if this one works. So there's the link. Don't put the www in it. wildwitchywise.com. Maybe that's what I did wrong. I gave you guys www. So for those of you that want to join the challenge, again, 7-day challenge, you'll get a little video every day emailed to you, a PDF that has a task for the day. And then I'm doing lives every day as well. So join the challenge. And there's also giveaways that we're doing. So if you join the challenge, there's gifts we'll tell you about later on, and lots of magic there. So join there. So, and I really agree as we close that we often don't give ourselves enough time to grieve, which is, I believe, a direct relationship to not being able to have joy. Because when you know how to skillfully grieve, you also know how to play and have joy. Okay. They're not separate. It's all part of, I believe it's part of the same thing. It's learning to express and be human. And one of the big things that I teach in our community is the importance of, and this is true for all things, of like separating out the story we have around something with the actual experience of it. So we have a lot of stories around grieving, but when you actually let yourself grieve, you'll find that there's more love and more space and more joy on the other side. When you have a story around grief of it's not fair this happened, when you feel victimized, when you are trying not to grieve, that's when things go awry. Okay. And it's the same thing around pleasure. We can have all sorts of agreements around pleasure and what pleasure looks like and where it's appropriate, where it's not appropriate. We should feel guilty if we feel it here and other people are suffering, like all this stuff. And we're going to unpack this throughout the challenge. The truth is, you pull the story off of what should pleasure look like? When am I allowed to have it? What is play? And you pull that off, you're going to find your expression of pleasure and play. That's what we're doing in Warrior Goddess Wild. So thank you so much, for joining me today. And we will keep talking. I'll be coming on every day over the next 6 days with our Warrior Goddess Wild Challenge. If you haven't joined yet, you can go to wildwitchywise.com. It's https:/// dunk the thing, wildwitchywise.com. Yeah, you're welcome, Erica. You're welcome, Jillian. Yes. So grateful to be here with you and look forward to seeing you again sometime soon, hopefully tomorrow for day 2 of Warrior Goddess Wild. Make sure that you join. Go to the page, join. It's all free. There's a big, beautiful giveaway at the end. There's going to be surprises throughout our time together. So make sure that you sign yourself up if you're not signed up already. And I also want to give a big shout out to all of you that are part of the Warrior Goddess Training Circle. Yay! And we'll talk soon. All right, sweets. Love you all. Take good care. Bye-bye.